regardless, it did not look very dangerous at all, and they didn't really do anything dangerous anyway. I mean, now that I think about it, there's absolutely no way this X was at the same height it's always been. These men were hanging from the X, they let go, and they fell about 3 feet to the mat. There's absolutely no way this is the same height it's always been. So they do a match.
So your source in TNA is a liar.
I cannot possibly know what he's talking about.
Maybe they left the X where it was, but they lowered the ring.
Maybe I'm thinking maybe the X was like 5 feet tall. I don't know. I just know they were hanging from the cables, and they were like 3 feet above the mat when they were hanging, which makes the cables about 8 feet high. I cannot fathom these cables being higher than 8 feet.
Remember years ago, AJ was in one of these and took that really retardedly stupid front flip bump off the cables? Yeah,
and you're telling me he fell from the same height that this cable was at tonight?
These men here were all short.
Yes.
And there'd be one guy hanging from the cables, and his opponent would come up, and his head would be at least as high as their knees.
Yeah. They did a good match. I mean, there was really nothing special about it.
It was, again,
a lot of video game style moves.
It was four small men taking turns doing cool shit.
Yeah.
They were, as Doug Williams would later note, acrobats.
Yep. And that was it. The Bucks lost. Saban got the X. He's getting a title shot. Really, the only other thing of note is the promo that the Guns cut beforehand, where they buried the Young Bucks, basically calling them Hardy Boys wannabes, and they used the term Hardy Boys, which was baffling to me because it's one thing if you're like, I'm trying to think. You know, it's one thing if you're like, you're making fun of The Rock, and you make fun of The Rock and claim he's like a low-rent Ric Flair. At least you're making fun of The Rock. The Young Bucks are low-rent Hardy Boys. When you come on TV and call attention to that fact, that's not a positive.
Sure. The good part of the promo is when they were calling them children, saying later they would be tucked into the beds by their mother, and they would spoon and dry hump their SpongeBob SquarePants blanket.
Yeah.
I laughed. This was some good put-downs, and it was preceded by a promo. I wrote down Angle, which sounds wrong. There was a point here where he talked briefly and then burned a Ken Anderson photo. But whoever was starting this promo said that he admired the men in the Ultimate X match, and Hollywood stuntmen would not do some of the things they would attempt. No shit. Hollywood stuntmen are smart, and they do things safely.
I would also like to know that they had a pre-show here, and they interviewed Dixie Carter, and she said that she always pushed hard for Destination X because she was a big fan of the X division, and she liked having the pay-per-view where those guys would get a chance to main event.
Still waiting for that chance to main event.
Fourth on the card, everyone, is now... This is back like when they hired the Kiss Demon.
Yes.
Kiss Demon in WCW was obviously Kiss. They had a deal with the band, and part of the deal was that Kiss had to always be in the main event or the semi-main event. So they ended up putting him on the card like third, but they would always announce him as being a main eventer. They would say, here in this co-main event, third on the card, the Kiss Demon. And he'd have a shitty match, and they'd move on.
What a stupid fucking thing to put in a contract, by the way.
Yeah.
I realize it was WCW. They did stupid things, but still. The next sentence in my notes reads, I will just quote myself, Hall cuts a promo showing off his hairy gut.
Mm-hmm.
It was Scott Hall and Sean Waltman. Hall noted he would put on the tizites again. This is not necessarily a good idea. He is not in the shape he used to be. Who among us is? But Waltman talked for a while, and frankly, I have no idea what he was saying. And then Scott Hall he found a lot of ways to say we're going to win and get our contracts.
Two notes. First off, Waltman was somehow even less lucid than Scott Hall. I have absolutely no idea how that's possible. Hall, in an example of low standards, based on how fat he was in good shape here. I realized that a lot of people were talking about what great shape Hall was in. Seriously. He had a fat, hairy gut. His face was spherical. Yes, he was in better shape than he was when he was morbidly obese. That's not saying a whole hell of a lot. He had a match. He doesn't have it anymore. It was Hall and Waltman against Nash and Eric Young. Nash never tagged in. Eric worked the entire match. They were so obviously